Greetings. I'm Craig DeRoche, the president and CEO of Family Policy Alliance, folks. And you might have been hearing in the news about these dangerous sex change surgeries that have been experimentally either approved or not approved. We're not sure in which states or federally, since in some cases the early 70s. There's been some pioneering surgical efforts, but more than not experimental surgeries. And we're hearing in the last several years that these surgeries are being performed on children, folks, children, before they turn 18, before they've reached the age of maturity, before people like Alexander Bachabia, the HHS director for the United States government, when he was the Attorney General in California, said that young men did not achieve the ability to cognitively value risk and reward until they were 26 years old. That's what he said as Attorney General, that we should have more compassion for young men in the juvenile justice system up until they're 26 years old because their brains are not fully formed. And then when he goes to the federal government, he's advancing surgery for children under the age of 18. Folks, we there's a lot of folks that weren't even sure if this was existing. A lot of the media, a lot of hospitals, a lot of medical professionals told us to look the other way. This does not exist. I have with us Dr. Eithan Haim of the Texas General Hospital, or he's a general surgeon. He is a graduate of Baylor Medical School, and he is a whistleblower. He helped expose Texas Children's Hospital, the largest children's hospital in the world, for lying to the public about the existence of their pediatric sex change program. He in his exposure of this, folks, understand we have a couple of issues here. One is that they're doing this in the first place, and second, that they're lying about it to the public. Dr. Eithan Haim didn't like, I presume, either one of those. But when he brought to the public what the government did not want the public to know what they were doing, something happened. Something that historically has happened to a lot of good citizens, good people, when our government gets embarrassed. He has faced 4 federal penalties, and the legal battle is ongoing. But his work has helped change his state for the better, one of the largest states in America, and provided hope for young children that were previously exposed to this radical ideology that was doing permanent harm to them. The Texas Senate passed legislation banning surgery and hormonal interventions on children who believe they are transgender. I had the opportunity to hear this story in person at our recent SoCon conference in Washington, D.C. And folks, I want to share this with you. I want to have Dr. Haim on here. And thank you for being with us. This is absolutely stunning. My wife left in tears after hearing you talk. She said to me, Doctor, I'm not making this up. She said, you've been in politics a long time. I've heard you say a lot of things. I thought that maybe you guys were just making this up for effect to get people to click on stuff. This is actually occurring in children's hospitals.
Yeah, it's and once the full story comes out, you're going to it just gets deeper. The whole thing gets crazier. I mean, they're trying to send me to prison for 10 years for fulfilling my role as a doctor, right? The hospital was lying to the public. They had said they shut down this program in order to avoid the potential criminal liability, but they just continued it and expanded it. And within 24 hours of our story coming out, the Texas Senate voted to make what we had exposed illegal. So within 24 hours, the conduct we exposed was made illegal. And I would argue that it had always been illegal. A month after that, they had showed up to my door on the day of my graduation from surgical training, one of the most important days of my life. Uh, and then to inform me that I was a potential target of a criminal investigation. So it was clear that they were using the value of my accomplishments as a surgeon as the means to obtain my compliance, right? It was their means of extortion. So we refused to speak to them. And over the next couple of months, I did everything to remain anonymous. I just wanted to live my life quietly in, a small town I live in even smaller town that I work in. This is my office. And but the corruption we saw, it was so bad, so much worse than we would have ever thought possible. So over those next 6 months, um, we had the encounters with the Department of Justice, and my it was so bad that my attorneys had blown the whistle themselves to Congress. They wrote a letter to Jim Jordan in the House subcommittee on the weaponization of the DOJ, and everyone can read it for themselves. But if you read it, you can see that the prosecutor who's coming after me sent agents to my home without ever reviewing the evidence beforehand. She didn't even know what the thing was about, but she sent armed federal agents to my home on the day of my graduation, one of the most important days of my life. And without even knowing the story, she threatened my wife's career, who had just been hired at the Department of Justice as a federal prosecutor. And currently she's working at the Department of Justice still. They're the same position. My wife and this prosecutor are the same position. They're both assistant U.S. attorneys. Yeah, it's crazy.
I love,
And
I love that. Wait, hold on. You got to back me up here. You're saying a lot of stuff here, and I know Dr. Haim is stepped out. He's in his practice right now, but he's given back. He's sharing the word of what happened in this whistleblower thing. So he's working as a resident at the time, right? This is last year, 2023.
yeah, I was a surgical resident from 2018 to 2023.
And you're in Texas, and you see what's happening. It was illegal anyway. What was going on
Yeah,
there?
I would argue it's illegal because it's illegal to sterilize a young child under false pretenses. But I grant that given the how crazy things have become in our country, there's like this Overton window that's been shifted that people somehow believe that this is not illegal. So,
So they're trying to clarify, but the main point here is, and I just wanted to pause, folks, because we're talking about human beings here, and in our country is a noble country, and it's founded on good ideas, but it's run by human beings, and we come up short all the time. That's all I wanted to say, and there's been a lot of folks that have seen this behavior before, where they use the justice system to try to silence people. It happens with our organizations in the pro-life movement, with alternative pregnancy resource centers get prosecuted all the time. And so that's all I wanted our audience to hear was this was the criminal side of the Department of Justice shows up and starts intimidating Dr. Haim at his house with armed guards, or armed people show up there, and the intimidation begins. This is because you told who about what was going on?
Yeah, I anonymously blew the whistle to Christopher Rufo May 16th, 2023, to expose the
And,
fact.
and who's that?
Christopher Rufo, yeah, he's the prominent conservative journalist. He was the one who exposed the really big story of Claudine Gay recently, the
Mhm.
president of Yale, for plagiarism. So he has been one of the most kind of impactful conservative journalists to expose DEI, the fraud behind that, and then the deception behind these transgender interventions. And yeah, so he's played a really big role
You
in
see,
this
just
was one of the
like the
stories.
movies. This is just like the movies. You say, I see kids getting hurt. I'm a doctor. This is permanent damage. I need to do something. You're intimidated, and you go to the media. It's probably the first place I'd go to, to be honest with you. I don't trust the police as much, but you go to the media, and then what happens?
Yeah, and it wasn't for lack of trying. I can't say too much else just because we have the federal trial coming up. But yeah, it took me 5 months to get a hold of Christopher Rufo, right? Because I think it's such a crazy story. It took me a long time to really believe it too. But he took it at the perfect time. So I blew the whistle to Christopher Rufo May 16th, 2023. A day later, that's when the Texas Senate voted to pass SB 14, which was a law that was codifying the illegality of these interventions for children. And then a month later, they show up to my door on the day of my graduation. And the next 6 months, we tried to push back. We were fighting it, but I was still anonymous because I didn't want to take this story public. Like that was the last thing I wanted to do, was blow up my entire life, everything I've ever worked for. And plus because I was scared, it's a scary thing to think that like we're really gonna, you know, go all the way with this. But after seeing the corruption that was coming from the Department of Justice, there was no choice. I mean, in that letter, you can see that my attorneys, right? Um, it's clear that they were going to do anything to prosecute me, to destroy my life, just like these these pro-life activists. I was in the same situation as them, right? You have a corrupt federal government who's going to do anything to destroy your life, and they told me, right, that they were going to take me to federal trial even if they were sure they were going to lose, and the implication being that this is not about justice, this is about destruction. That there's no reasoning behind what they're doing other than to target and criminalize innocent American citizens, but innocent American citizens who display the virtues of their profession. So what choice did I have? So, I took this story public because the last option I had was to simply tell the truth. And if I'm going to fight back, I can't do it alone, because by that point, after 6 months, we had, you know, gone through our entire savings, right? Over $200,000, right? Our savings accounts, we cashed out all of our retirement. Any disposable income we had was gone. So we knew we had to fight it, but we needed help from other people. So, and of course, a couple of months after that, after taking the story public, they make good on their word. They sent armed U.S. Marshals to my home at 7 in the morning, and I was informed that I was being charged with 4 federal felonies, uh, for going to prison for 10 years. And this is for a statute that's never been pursued in American history, right? They're charging me with a HIPAA violation, right? Claiming the hospital were the ones who've been damaged, right? For exposing the truth. They're charging me with malicious intent simply for anonymously blowing the whistle about what was truthfully happening at the hospital. So it's obvious that this is in line with what they've been doing in other cases that we've seen.
Well, it's a ghoulish practice, and there's so many rich layers here that you're exposing. I'm Craig DeRoche, the president and CEO of Family Policy Alliance, and I'm with Dr. Eithan Haim, and he is a surgeon in Texas. He is a whistleblower. He exposed that Texas Children's Hospital, the largest children's hospital in the world, was not telling the truth when they said they were not doing sex change operations. In fact, they were actively doing this. He blew the whistle. Federal agents showed up at his house, armed federal agents. He was charged with 4 felonies, folks. This is what has become of this justice system right now. It's a lot of injustice right now, where we treat people unequally, for sure, and with injustice. But this is far beyond that, where we're targeting enemies of the state, people that would blow the whistle, people that would protect the life, the innocence, the childhood, allow these children to grow up before they're permanently castrated, before they're affected. Eithan Haim, one of the long history of medical leaders in his field, at a very young age, God has used him in such a powerful way. This story has the public talking, Doctor. What are they saying to you? You're able to, you have charges against you. I was once overcharged. I don't know if they told you about that. I was charged with possessing a firearm that wasn't even on the same floor in my house as I was. I know what the justice system can do when they're mad at you. We see that with former President Trump and a lot of other people. They use it as almost a mafioso. I told people racketeering is where you create the problem for somebody and then you offer them the solution. That's kind of what they're doing here. They arrested you. They're probably trying to work you over. So we can't talk too much about that. But your lawyers have said to you, you can talk about what you saw. You can be a little bit of a whistleblower here and talk about this is very real. This is something that America should be concerned about. Children should be protected. As you've talked about that in public, What type of response have you received from people?
Yeah, and I think the inherent nature of what they're doing is something that people can understand is absolutely wrong. Because, Craig, if you were to come into my clinic, right? Yeah, I'm just about to see a bunch of patients, but if you're about to come into my clinic and you say, Dr. Haim, believe I should be born without an arm. And I say, you know what? You're right. Let's book a date for you to come to the operating room and I'm going to chop off your arm. If I were to do that, I would lose my license and go to prison for aggravated assault and criminal negligence. And I would say that that hypothetical situation is not nearly as bad as what they're doing to these children or even these adults, because what they're saying is that you can become the opposite sex. That if you commit yourself to a lifelong commitment to these powerful drugs and these surgeries, if you sterilize yourself, if you become a chronic medical patient, then that's the only way to find happiness. They say that the only way to become happy is to chase a unobtainable horizon. So, under these false pretenses, these people are, um, uh, you know, buying into something that can never be, and their bodies are being permanently mutilated because of it. So that's what's happening. People can intuit that this is wrong. So whether it's child or an adult, this is something that is horrifying. And because of that, the outpouring of support is something that I could have never even imagined, because we've raised over $1 million
And
for
I
this
want to tell
case.
people about that. Hold on, Dr. Heim. I got to tell people about that. We're going to bring the links up here. Folks, when you fight authority, authority does not have to win in our country, in our nation. We can fight authority, but you know that Sixth Amendment we have that says that we're afforded a defense that is massively underfunded in our country, and they are throwing the entirety of the federal government at Dr. Heim, the entirety of it, for felonies. They have staffs of people preparing to prosecute and incarcerate this promising young physician. But we can do something about that because we can fight back. It's not just about fighting the government, the Department of Justice in this case. It's about protecting the lives of millions of children that are being exposed to this false, as Dr. Heim pointed out, false thing. You cannot become the other sex. It's not a freedom that's being offered to you by that hospital. If you listen to the doctor's words, it's a slavery is being offered. You do not need drugs in chronic care today for the things that you will need it for the day that you leave the hospital. You will need care for the rest of your life. That is the opposite of what doctors are taught. And so we need to help him. We can go to givesendgo.com, givesendgo.com/Texas_whistleblower, Texas whistleblower. Please, we'll have that link here wherever we share this post. Please go and help Dr. Heim today. Dr. Heim, I know that there's a lot of people supporting you, and that this is just the beginning of this. But what are things that you would tell the public? What's the most help? I think one of the most helpful things that we can do is to let people know that, first of all, this is actually happening. I think people think this is made up by Fox News or something like that. That's one of the most important things of why you're on the show. But second, that is there any medical need for any child to have these surgeries before they're 18 years old in your medical training? I'm not hearing that there are.
No, and I would say, like, you don't have to be a doctor to come to this conclusion. This is something that is um, uh, kind of able to be intuited by like universal human logic, right? Like, is it true, right? Is this true? Can a male become a female? And the answer is no, not only for a child, but for an adult. It's not the doctor's role to affirm something that's not true, to create something that is not promoting a state of health. So no, there's no medical need because it's not real. So a doctor's job is not that. So absolutely, there's no role in it. And that's why what's happening is so wrong. Just like there's no role for an abortion, because that's not just a fetus, that's not just a clump of biological matter. That's a human soul with a unique um uh uh it's a unique human being, right? It doesn't matter if it's a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months, right? That is a sacred human within the womb. So I
Yeah,
think the
that's the
if we
easiest way to say it. We're just talking about a human being. That's the way I'm trying to train. We're with Dr. Eithan Haim, and we train politicians. You're a trained surgeon and a wonderful surgeon. You're spending your time with us today, and I'm very grateful for it. But we need to have other people find their voice, and I want you guys. Dr. Eithan Haim has had, I guarantee, 4 or 5 more years than all of us, at least, if not 8 to 10 years more training in biology and medical sciences. And he just made it really simple for us. It's a person to him, is what he said. It's a human being. And you shouldn't look at it any differently than that. I just wanted to interrupt you there, Dr. Haim.
yeah.
I look at all human life as human life. It's a really eloquent way to do it.
So and would you want that other human life to live it as a chronic medical patient, where their existence has to depend on a doctor's prescription or a surgeon's recommendations? And if they don't get those things, then these doctors tell them that you're going to kill yourself. That is the blackmail they use to get them to commit. If it's a child, that's a blackmail they use to convince the parents. If it's an adult, that's a blackmail they use to have them commit to a lifetime of this. So obviously it's wrong. So you don't need a medical degree to see what is obvious to everyone. And then the other thing I would say to anyone who's listening is that at some point, right, it's understandable to be scared and fearful of the consequences of standing up to the most powerful federal leviathan in human history. But there's some point where you have to stop running, where you have to realize that if we don't push back in this fight, then we're just passing it along to our children. So, you might be scared of losing your job, of losing your profession. You might be scared of the federal government sending the FBI or the DOJ or DHS after you. But at some point, you have to stop running, because if you love your children more than you love yourself, then the time to fight back is now. Because we know that if we don't do something against this corrupt, evil government, right? The Biden, and if we don't win in November, Kamala Harris, if we don't do something, then we're going to lose our ability to live as citizens. And what's going to happen is we're going to live as slaves or serfs or peasants. So if you believe that you're an American citizen and not a serf, then now is the time to fight back.
Dr. Eithan Haim, I tell you what, folks, we grew up reading about people that said they weren't going to take it anymore when a king across the country passed a tea tax. Here, this is far worse. They're literally coming into our families, taking our children, performing surgeries when a doctor tries to speak up and say that this is in fact happening, folks. This is not just some crazy right-winger stuff. A medical doctor says it is happening. Folks, these children are being permanently disfigured, permanently. And they send armed guards. That's the priority of our nation right now. Folks, something is not right. Dr. Eithan Haim is right. He's a hero. We need to stand behind folks like this that are willing to speak up. But more importantly, he said that your silence and my silence, he's indicted me as well. And that's the best thing a guest can do. Dr. Haim, it's such a privilege to have you with us on the show today to do that. You're right. We need to find our inner courage, folks. This is where we either let our country slip away from us, or we grab and hold it and embrace it and pull it back toward our heart, because it's worth fighting for. This country, we own the country. Dr. Haim, we tell people too, and you're part of the rising, you're the best part of the rising generation, by the way. showing all of us, the baby boomers, the Gen X's, the millennials, people that came before you, how it's done, that you can see clearer than us. We're challenging everybody to vote not once every 4 years, Dr. Haim, but in your generation to vote 4 times every year, because there's always these ticky-tack, school board and city council elections locally. But we're finding is if we don't vote in those, we're not tending to the garden, and nothing happens. We don't get candidates anywhere. But if we vote in every election by mail, as soon as we can, that there's enough social conservatives, people with common sense that share our values, we can win everywhere. So I just wanted to say that to you. Folks, if you're not in a whistleblower situation like Dr. Haim just pointed out, you are in a situation to get your ballot delivered to you every single election that occurs 4 times usually in every state a year, not once every 4 years, and you should vote. And with that, Dr. Haim, I'm going to let you have the last word. Send us out. What can we be doing to help you protect kids in America today?
Yeah, so my federal trial is scheduled for mid-October. Our first baby is going to be born like a week before, and we're going to go to trial. We're going to fight back. We're going to win, and we have the best lawyers imaginable. Marcella Burke. She started her own law firm because she wanted to live according to what she knew was true, and big law had been captured by the same ideology that's captured everywhere else. So she started her own law firm. She brought in Jeff Hall, who was a longtime DOJ prosecutor. He's amazing. Ryan Patrick, who's Dan Patrick's son, he's a lieutenant governor of Texas. His son, Ryan Patrick, is also our attorney. He was a former U.S. attorney of the Southern District of Texas. So, very prestigious, very experienced in his own right. And then we also have Mark Lytle, who is the attorney representing representing Gary Shapley, who's the IRS whistleblower in the Hunter Biden case. And he's been a DOJ prosecutor for decades as well. And so if anyone wants to help our legal fund, it's givesendgo.com/Texas_whistleblower. I tell people that every single dollar that they donate is a middle finger to the people who hate us the most, right? These people hate us. They want to destroy us. They hate your children. They hate everything about you. So what should we do in that situation? We should fight back against people who hate us. And we should not be, we should abandon the fear of them, because there's something to fear more. If you believe in God, right? You should fear the judgment from God. And that's it. That's what should we fear more? These people who are in DC, right? Should we
Amen.
fear the consequences of them? Or should we fear the thing that we know is real, right? Which is the judgment of the higher power that we believe in. That's
Amen.
it.
And
And once you believe that, then the decision becomes very easy, right? People are like, oh, well, where do you have the courage from? Well, it's not that hard, It's like, well, I just fear, God more than I fear them. Once you come to that conclusion, then yeah, I think you have a lot of people who are coming to that conclusion, right? But then you have a lot of people who say that, but then obviously they believe something different.
well, in the court, a lot changes when people are sworn in. They have to put their hand on that Bible, and they're sworn in. They have to tell the truth. What are you doing? Are you trying to help a child? Or are you trying to harm the child? Things get very difficult for the people that you blew the whistle on. That's why they would rather intimidate you, scare you, try to use mafioso techniques to get you to stand down, to accept something that doesn't affect your record, maybe in exchange for your silence for a decade. That's what they do. And you've chosen to say no. There's I saw a report 6,000 kids have had this surgery over the last couple of years.
Conservatively, and especially it's like, for me,
It's
there's an easy way out. I mean,
those are
I can make this all go away tomorrow if I
those are
wanted to,
yeah.
but I would
Those are
rather spend
6,000.
every single day of the rest of my life in prison than bow down to these people who are going to destroy our country and my children's future. Because the thing I fear more than anything is bringing my daughter into a world knowing that her father wasn't willing to fight for her future. And everyone listening should think about that to themselves. That do they want to have their children believe that they were not willing to fight for their kids?
Folks, if you're wondering if there are doctors out there that still think the way that Oskar Schindler did at the end of that movie, how he's portrayed running around, there's just one more I could have saved. There's just one more I could have saved. Dr. Eithan Haim is with us. That's his heart. That's how God uses him. He's trying to save every one of those 6,600 little kids that have been mutilated over the last couple of years. And we hope that you will help him do that. We've got to let him get back to his practice because he's got a vibrant practice that he's growing there. But Dr. Eithan Haim has been with us, whistleblower from Texas General Hospital. God is using him in a very powerful way. And we pray that that honors and glorifies him. Thank you, Dr. Haim, for being with us.
Yep. Thank you very much.